Maybe you should try and phone me. Or video me. Let's see if that works. Yeah, because it shows you're offline. Oh, there you go. Oh, I should probably take off the sticker.
Hi.
Hello. Why? Where are you?
Oh, I need to take off my sticker too.
This time I am recording both of us.
Are you sure?
I am sure. Gosh, I tell you, like, I nearly cried when I noticed that I didn't record both of us. I'm like, oh my word, what an idiot. How weird. Like, we literally recorded on Wednesday and, like, nothing was happening. And then I didn't record your part. First of all, I sound like a freaking crazy person on that recording.
Because it's just you.
Because it's just me. It sounds like I'm literally speaking to myself and having a full-blown conversation in my head. It was quite jarring. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And then we still said, okay, no, we'll just do it on Friday. And then literally a war broke. I almost said broke out.
Yeah.
In between 2 days. And I know tensions were high for quite a while, but it's just it's crazy.
Well, I see NATO are busy meeting now, and with like people from the EU, so because they want to impose like a third set of sanctions. But I mean,
I think as I understand it, like the worst sanctions and I put that in like air quotations because I don't know like how the sanctions rank, but the worst thing that we can do or they can do to them is block their SWIFT payments. And I am no expert in anything, but especially not this. I don't think any like world war will happen. The only time things will really, really escalate is if Russia gets into any of the countries that are a part of NATO, which they haven't done yet, but
and I mean, just like when the NATO meeting was starting, I saw that Putin actually said something, but the guy translating was so like all over the place sounding, so I don't even know what he said, but so he's already like, screw guys.
Like I told you, the thing that really just scared me is when he said, if any foreign force tries to interfere, there will be consequences never seen before or whatever. So that immediately made me think about nuclear weapons. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then, but then we're all screwed. This impacts all of us, not just... And obviously it impacts the normal citizens of Russia, both Russia and the Ukraine the most, because let's be honest, Putin is a dictator. No normal leader is in power for as long as he has been. Yeah. By the choice of the people. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Especially if he does things that are against their their betterment or their, I don't know, well-being. Yeah. There we go.
Because the sanctions are going to hurt the Russian people, not really him.
Exactly. So
it sucks for them, and like one person causing all of this.
Yeah, it's very sad, and it's also weird because I've also seen like a lot of people saying how we're literally watching a war unfold on social media. You know, and it's such a weird time to live in, because I think obviously it's nice being able to be informed and being able to have like a lot of sources of information, but that's also a negative sometimes because you don't know which sources are really informed and well educated and stuff like that. But then also
it's like with COVID.
Exactly. And I also
don't know what to trust.
Precisely. And another thing is I feel like there's a sense of helplessness because you're literally watching it unfold and you're seeing these people suffer in real time. And your feelings of helplessness just increase tenfold, I feel. And not to make this about myself, because it's obviously about the people that are experiencing it. But it's just... it's very sad.
Yeah, it is very sad. Like the videos I was watching, where you hear the bombs and the stuff going off, and like you hear people like scared and people being displaced, having to be refugees now. Like 2 days ago they were living a normal life, and all of a sudden they're refugees. Exactly. It's like, what? That's so traumatizing for the kids and stuff. Like the one dude was saying how he has to now explain to his like 6-year-old why he has to stay behind and defend his country, and the mom and the kid has to leave.
I can't even imagine. And I also, while I was watching the news earlier, they were literally saying how in the Ukraine they were telling people how to make Molotov cocktails, like to defend themselves, and telling people, like average citizens could just go out and get weapons. Like you must just... I can't even imagine, I thought that, when the riots and things happened, the looting riots, like that was scary, and that was a big civil unrest, and everyone, I felt stressed that day, and I wasn't really in the vicinity of those things happening, but it's still a very jarring situation. Political unrest is always jarring, but something like that, I can't even wrap my mind around it.
And it's like you can't help but, like, as a human, think, is this going to impact me? Is this going to affect my country? Is this going to, like, especially, like you said, South Africa has dealings with Russia, and trade, and China as well.
To them.
Yeah, so...
To both of them.
I mean, I've seen the posts from South Africans, like, the South African National Defence Force just needs to just stay put, because
we couldn't even deal with the lootings.
Yeah.
And
that's scary in itself, that should anything happen war-wise, South Africa's screwed.
I think we're okay because we're not aligned. We're not.
No, but I just mean
really
in general.
Aligned with any. But also at least geographically we're quite safe as well. I don't think it's not as easy to like just ambush us, but also.
Yeah, but I mean, like you have an army. They should be ready. Like that's the point of them. Yeah, well, welcome to Lawn Omen.
On that somber note.
Yeah.
Gosh. Oh.
Behind you. Yeah. There's a pandy, there's a puppy, and Luna's screaming somewhere. I had to wash Lily earlier because she came into my room and I was like, why do you smell like poop? And I couldn't see, like, on her feet or anything. It was on her ear. She had a smear of poop on her freaking ear. I'm like, how did you get that right? Like, that's on the complete... Yeah, it's like the complete opposite side of your butt. Like, how? So I had to bath her, and now she's been playing outside again, and she stinks again. And I'm like, what have you been doing? Like, I literally gave her...
rolling in her poop.
Yeah. I gave her, like, a mint toy. A treat. Because Bass said maybe she was eating poop, and so it's her mouth that's stinging. And I'm like, why are you such a baby? I don't want to do this.
When we let our cats out, when we let James and Percy out, James goes and rolls in the horse poop all the freaking time. Like every time we let him out, because we don't want to let him out too much because there are rabbits out here and guinea fowl and all things like that. So he gets they both get supervised time outside.
So your house is prison.
Well, I'm protecting all the other animals that are supposed to be out there. My cats are an invasive species in this environment, so he always, without fails, just goes and rolls in the horse poop. It's
what a special child.
Was it me or was it Patrick? But one of us has caught him eating it before as well. I don't know if it's because there's grass in there or what it is, but I don't know.
Ugh, it's yucky.
It is. And this morning I woke up and there was like this big ass spider lying in the middle of the floor, but it was dead. Yeah. So one of the cats clearly killed it. And I was so scared that they would, like, that it's a venomous spider.
Yes.
And that they got something in their mouth, but, like, they both seemed to be fine. Because it was a big spider, like, is it a thorax? I think, I don't know.
Thorax? Isn't that like body or body?
The body of the spider.
Oh, yes. Thorax. Right.
I don't know. Anyway, that was.
It just sounds like a supervillain name now. Like, my brain is. This is basic anatomy.
It sounds like a shape.
Oh my goodness. Is that our rhombus? Yes, the thorax is the region between the abdomen inferiorly. And the roots of the neck superiorly. Oh. Yes, it's your chest.
Yes, I was wrong. Anyway.
No, like, that's the thorax of the spider, like, its body.
Okay, cool. Great.
Like, if we were spiders, that would be our spider body, and these would be our creepy legs. Science with Chanelle and Kristin. Woo. Wow, we have not increased in intelligence at all in the last 2 days. Wow, we are derailed all kinds of ways today.
So derailed. And before we actually start with my section of the podcast, last week we spoke about, what's her name, Daisy de Malker, and we said, I said that she had a son that was named Rhodes Cecil, and you asked if he was the guy that they named the... I almost said Heerlijkheid. I almost said the Cecil Hotel.
You know, I'd be glad if we had the Cecil Hotel here.
I wouldn't go there.
For ghost hunting purposes.
Exactly. So you asked if he was the guy that they named Rhodes after, which I said no, he was a settler, which isn't not true. So Cecil John Rhodes was born on the 5th of July, 1853, and he died the 26th of March, 1902. He was a British mining magnate and politician in Southern Africa who served as the Prime Minister of the Cape Colony from 1890 to 1896. He was an ardent believer in British imperialism. Rhodes and his British South Africa Company founded the Southern African territory of Rhodesia, now known as Zimbabwe and Zambia, which the company named after him in 1895. South Africa's Rhodes University is also named after him, and he also devoted much effort to realizing his vision of a Cape to Cairo railway through British territory. Rhodes set up the provisions of the Rhodes Scholarship, which is funded by his estate. So that is the brief history on Rhodes. But yeah, he was a colonizer. That's who he was.
That's all we need to know.
Yep. And then, as no surprise to you anymore, I'm doing the story of the first woman hanged in South Africa and the last woman hanged in South Africa, because we spoke about the second woman hanged in South Africa last week. So before we begin, I am just going to give a disclaimer that I mean no harm or ill will towards the people I speak about. This is a report on the information that I could compile, and the case and all my resources will be listed in the show notes below, which is just basically in the show description. These are all opinions of my own.
Opinion, unless it's like stated fact.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. I am going to talk about Emily Chania first. In the Star of the 21st of June 1921, they tell of a woman, Emily Chania, and her paramour, Lucas Matong, who in 1903 were charged with the murder of her husband, an elderly man. The murder was particularly brutal, one in which an axe and stones were employed, and the body was thrown into a river. So she was reported to have been in the bed with her husband when her lover killed him, which is
that's
really intense. And she was the first documented woman in South Africa to be condemned to death, and this happened in the Orange Free State. They both were found guilty to have taken part in the murder, and they were both executed on the 28th of November 1904. Although she was the first documented woman to be hanged or executed, doesn't mean she was necessarily the actual first.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the first documented woman, and that's literally all the information that I could get on her. There is very, very limited resources. And I think we mentioned when I didn't record both of our audios that you mentioned the coastal lines had more people coming in, so naturally they'd be a little bit more involved isn't the right word.
No, well, they document things a lot more. They'd be more maybe sophisticated?
Sophisticated, yes. They were more sophisticated than, like, the places inland, perhaps.
Yes.
And there was a war taking place during that time, just before that time. A lot of factors playing into why there might not be so many resources available on that.
Yeah.
But I did get quite a bit of information on the last woman to be executed in South Africa, and her name was Sandra Smith, and this all took place in Cape Town. So Sandra Smith was married to a man called Philip, and he was a trawler. So he'd obviously spent long periods of time out at sea. The two actually had two children together, and Philip provided for them by sending money back when he was spending time earning a wage out at sea. But during these periods of time that he wasn't home, Sandra started having an affair with a man, and by 1983 she was madly in love. The man that she had fallen in love with was 3 years younger than her, and his name was Yassim Harris. Unfortunately, he probably wasn't best person to fall in love with because he was involved in criminal activities since he was like 13 years old.
What a catch.
And he already had convictions against him for theft as well as fraud. And then I also found out that he was either a drug dealer or drug user. I found two articles saying different things, but either way, he was somehow involved with drugs, which is
neither is good.
No. So in 1986, Philip actually found out that Sandra was having an affair, and he found out Sandra was having an affair from the neighbors, and he threw her out. So naturally, Sandra moved in with Yassim, but soon the money started running out that Sandra was getting from Philip, because Yassim was also unemployed.
Did you mention about their kids? Like, because I know last time we mentioned you don't know, like, what happened to the kids. It doesn't really say.
I have no idea what happened to the two kids. I know later on that Yassim and Sandra had one child together, but they don't really ever talk about that child, and they never again speak of the two children that Philip and Sandra had. So I'm hoping that, maybe a relative took them or stayed with... Well, Philip was gone half of the time, so couldn't really have stayed with him, but they don't really speak about them, so I'm just hoping that they were at least not in the middle of all of what's about to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So money ran out, and they decided to devise a scheme of renting video recorders from shops and selling them. I don't understand how that would work, because if you're renting something, surely you're going to have to bring it back. And if you've sold it, how does that... I don't understand how that even works. Very weird. So obviously that didn't make them enough money to pay rent and live off of. But Yassim was also a creep who stood outside of all girls' schools. We got to know some of the schoolgirls. And that's also where he met Jermaine Abrams. And from their conversations, he basically got to know her and found out that she lived in quite a nice neighborhood, so he concluded that her family was wealthy. And from that, all those conversations that they had together, he also found out that her parents would leave for work at 7 and she would leave for school at around 20 to 8.
Mm-hmm.
So the couple, Yassim and Sandra, devised a plan to break into the Abrahams' house to steal any valuable things that they could find. And on the morning of the 1st of September, on the morning of the 1st of September, 1986, Sandra and Yassim would do exactly that. They arrived at the family's home at 7:30, so they knew that Jermaine was still going to be home. And Yassim knocked on the door and basically asked her if he could use her telephone.
That just made me have visions of black-eyed kids. I need to use your telephone.
No, you don't. Goodbye. I'm not even opening the door for anyone who knocks on my front door.
Yeah, no.
To be honest with you, I pretend that no one's home.
Yeah, me too. Bess is always like, answer the door. I'm like, no, why should I? Like, I will sometimes put the security camera, like, the feed on so I can see, is it someone I need to open the door for? Like, I don't know you, go away.
Especially if you're not expecting anything. If
yes.
You're not expecting a delivery or anything like, I won't even answer the phone.
Yeah.
What makes you think I'm going to answer the door?
Yeah. Like, stranger danger. Like, I was thinking, this girl talking to this dude who's standing outside of the school, that's like the perfect example of like stranger danger. It's this random person. Obviously, he's an older person coming to, flirt with her. She feels like, oh, I'm special. Exactly. It's just like playing into that he knows that that's what she's going to be into or whatever. Maybe, Yeah. It's just, it's sick because like he targeted her.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's disgusting, but it's always going after, and I'm not saying she was weak, but no. Because she was young, she's impressionable, Yes. She kind of had a rose-tinted view of what the world is, Of course, yeah. I didn't find out how old she was, but I mean, she was still in school, and I feel like at school you are so much more sheltered, and
yes.
I think it depends on your experience in life. Obviously, some of us live a more sheltered life than others, but he still preyed upon that vulnerability, and I fully blame him. I'm not victim blaming her at all because it's not her fault. No. He is the adult.
It's just showing how he preyed on her as an adult, preying on a child. Going to a school to eat like perv on kids. First of all, that's disgusting. But then to plan a crime based on that intel that you're getting. It's just like, seriously, you're preying on her and, anyway, makes me mad.
Makes me mad as well. She obviously let him in to use the telephone because she'd gotten to know him, He had gained her trust and he preyed upon that. And upon entering, they, meaning Yassim and Sandra, tied Jermaine up. And then they were startled by a knock at the door. And I also found some sources said, mentioning this knock at the door. Some sources didn't mention it. Nothing happened. They said that Jermaine shouted for help, and that they tried to make her quiet by strangling her with the dishcloth. And afterwards, he demanded that she tell him where her mother's jewelry was, but she refused to tell them.
Yeah.
And Yassim testified, quote, I began throttling her with the dishcloth, but she still refused to talk. She wriggled for a few seconds, made some gurgling sounds, and then lay still. She came to, and she was crying, but she still refused to say anything. Yassim said that he had kneeled by her side and told her not to worry, which when I read that, I'm like, what?
Wow.
What do you mean? You've literally just strangled her to unconsciousness and now you're telling her not to worry.
Yeah.
Just leave.
Yeah.
Then she won't have, she'll still worry because trauma, but I hate it when criminals feign caring.
Compassion.
Yes, compassion, exactly.
Like, you didn't have compassion when you were scheming, when you were trying to find information.
or doing the act.
Yeah, exactly.
But according to him, Sandra became enraged, went to grab a kitchen knife and ordered him to stab Jermaine. Trigger warning, trigger warning. He testified that he started repeatedly stabbing Jermaine in the neck. And in the court he said, quote, "I saw blood coming out of her neck and I looked at Sandra and she was smiling. Jermaine was lying on the floor on her stomach and she wriggled onto her back, but I still went on stabbing her."
Jeez. It's terrible. It's like overkill.
Completely. She survived the stabbing and managed to get to her feet, and she tried to get away from her attackers before obviously falling because she was weak and losing blood.
I was just thinking, like, okay, you're going for the neck area, that's where, like, that's important. You can either paralyze, cut the windpipe, whatever, and she survives, and she's just like, and I mean, you can, like, bleed out. So how was he stabbing her so that she actually survived? Yeah. It's just
sheer willpower that she had for that little while. So before falling, because she was obviously completely weak and in shock, they were right on her heels as well. Harris, which is Yassim, his surname is Harris, carried her to her mother's room and then demanded again that she show them where the valuable things are. And that's when she said, quote, "Yassim, I don't want to die now." And which again to me shows that she knew him on a first name basis. She must have trusted him. Once again, she led him into the house.
Yes.
And what a shock that must have been for her, you know.
And to know, like, I am close to, like, dying.
Exactly.
You're like a kid. And to have to face that, that's just terrible.
So he wrapped her in a sheet, hoping that she would die while they went to go and get the valuable things. And when they came back into the room, they discovered that she was still alive. And Yassim claimed that he, trigger warning, quote, "realized that she would not die from the stab wounds, so I closed my eyes and slit her throat." Although Sandra claimed that he murdered her because he didn't want her to be able to identify him, which to me seems like the more truthful statement.
Yes.
She further claimed that Jermaine kept pleading with them to let her live, again saying that she didn't want to die. When they retrieved the jewelry, they could see that she was getting weak, and she said they put her on the bed. She became cold and she asked for water, but they didn't give her any. And that's when she began to bleed more, and then she died. And then Mr. Harris closed his eyes and slit her throat, according to her testimony. 2 weeks after the murder, Sandra was being questioned by the police regarding the video scam, and that's when she surprised the interviewing officers by confessing to killing Jermaine, because according to her, she wouldn't have been able to live with it. So why did you do it in the first place?
Yeah. There was plenty of time to call for help.
To back up, to say, this is crazy.
She was alive long enough for you to call for an ambulance, or at least try some sort of CPR of some sorts. But you had no problem going through looking for valuables.
Exactly.
Now you want to act like you have empathy.
Exactly. Sorry, it's the lag. And you had no problem with your boyfriend getting to know a child with those pretenses already in mind.
Yeah.
Go away.
Oh, it's disgusting.
On the 15th of September 1986, Sandra Smith was formally charged with the murder, and 5 days later, Harris was arrested and also charged. At the committal hearing at the Mitchell's Plain Magistrates Court on the 23rd of September, both of them pleaded guilty to murder, alternatively to culpable homicide, and to stealing 2,000 rands worth of jewelry. So 2,000 rand is, I think, when you worked it out, when we recorded last time, it was like 30k, something like that. No amount of money is ever worth like taking a human life, but that little, you know, like whatever you gain from this, you're going to prison anyway. First of all, they didn't even go to prison; they freaking died. But no amount of money is ever worth taking a person's life.
Yeah,
you have
and
no right.
Like a child. And then you ruin those parents' lives. That's like their baby, their child, and they come home and, oh, my daughter's dead.
Exactly.
There's blood everywhere. This place has been ransacked. Like, she was supposed to be at school.
The trauma that you've caused for everyone involved, you know, the trauma that you caused the victim before they died, the family members that have to find the body, the friends that, you know, that have lost her for 2,000 rands worth of freaking jewelry. So they were tried together at the Cape Town Supreme Court on the 1st of December 1986 before Mr. Justice Munich, the judge president of the Cape Court, sitting with 2 assessors. Sandra maintained the whole time that Yassim had done the actual killing, and he claimed that he had been dominated by Sandra and she basically forced him to do it. Yeah. Although they both did admit to be present during the murder.
Yeah.
Having heard all the evidence, Mr. Justice Munich described Harris as an appalling witness and said it was clear that Harris stabbed Germaine and slit her throat to prevent her identifying the 2 of them. Furthermore, he rejected Harris's defense claim that he had been dominated by Smith, which had been refuted by the psychiatrist giving evidence for the prosecution.
Okay.
He accepted that Smith was demanding, but she wasn't dominant, and that there was no evidence to indicate that she forced Harris to kill Germaine, nor that she had done anything to prevent the murder. So she was still guilty, but she didn't force him to do anything.
Yeah, he had the choice all the time.
Exactly.
Even if he was being forced, you still have the choice.
Precisely. How do you force someone to kill another person? Unless, and I think like you said previous time, even if you have a gun pointed against your head to kill someone else, you still ultimately have the choice of what to do.
Yeah. It's a difficult choice, sure, but it's still your choice. And also like their choice to not help her. They could have, they could have gone into this thing, let's conceal our identities so we just rob and leave. They went into it being open to murder. So
he thus concluded that they were both equally responsible for crime under the doctrine of common purpose. And on the 11th of December 1986, they were both formally convicted of the murder of Germaine Abrams, as well as for the robbery with aggravating circumstances, and remanded to await their sentencing.
Yeah.
11 days later, they were brought back to the court and each received the mandatory sentence for murder, that they be hanged by the neck until they were dead. Additionally, Harris received a 10-year prison sentence for robbery, and Smith was given 7 years for the robbery. When the sentence was read, Sandra looked at her mother that had been present in court and screamed, "Mummy, no, no." And she was wailing and struggling when she was dragged down the stairs to the cells. Where it's too late to call for your mom now.
Yeah.
Like, what? What do you think Germaine, she also wanted her mom in those in the last couple of minutes before you brutally murdered her, or was an accomplice to murdering her.
Yes.
Now you want to call for your mom.
I mean, that must be so terrible if you're the mom or the parents of someone and you're like, crap, my kid murdered someone else's kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that some, like, especially some serial killer moms are like, oh, but he's my perfect little angel. No. But if you're a rational human being and you're like, okay, my kid did something terrible here, that must be hard to deal with.
Yeah. And I think you probably carry some amount of guilt, even though you shouldn't, because at that point they are adults and make their own choices. I don't know, I think it's only natural to then want to go back and think, where did I go wrong? Sometimes it's not even you.
Yeah, you'd probably question your parenting and every decision you've made as a parent up to that point, but it's, that person ultimately had the decision.
Yeah.
Even if you were a crappy parent, that person had a decision and they made the wrong decision. So
the pair were transferred to the country's only death row at Pretoria Central Prison, a modern facility on the outskirts of the capital, where all South African executions were carried out. They appealed their sentences, but both of the appeals were turned down for obvious reasons. The review of the trial transcripts to determine whether to recommend that the state president grant clemency carried out by the Minister of Justice failed to find any mitigating circumstances. As clemency was not forthcoming, the execution date was set for the 2nd of June 1989. Apparently, only around 1 in 50 or 2% of people convicted of homicide were actually hanged at this time. The majority of the people served prison sentences, which is interesting. It's actually a very low rate of people who are actually, executed. On Friday, the 2nd of June, 1989, at 10 to 7 in the morning, Sandra was taken to meet Yasim for the first time in over 2.5 years. Along with 2 other men, Michael Erasmus and Jacob Ndada, who had been convicted of other murders, they were led the 52 steps to the pre-execution room next to the gallows. The death warrants were read to them, and they were given the opportunity to say their last words. Their hands had been handcuffed behind them the whole time, and they also had white hoods placed over their heads, but it has a flap in the front that you could lift for them to be able to say their last words. Afterwards, they were led forward by warders into the great... Nope, that's not anywhere. I don't know where... I don't even know where I saw that. Afterwards, they were led forward by warders into the large and brightly lit execution room. It was about 40 feet long and had white painted walls, and you could see, and they would have been able to see, like the gallows beam running like, the length of the room, throughout the room.
Yeah.
And there were 7 large metal eyes from which the 4 nooses dangled, but 7 prisoners could be hanged at a time. So I think obviously then they'd only hang 4 nooses if there were 4 people that are being hanged, but 7 people could be hanged at the same time, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, and I think I still said, like, it's 52 steps and 7 days, like 7 people, so it's like 7 days in a week, 52 weeks in a year. Yeah. So that's just, it's
a weird
that they chose
that specific number. Yeah. I wonder if it has any any significance.
But like you said as well, like the fact that you can hang that many people at once, and like that it's just, I mean, I know that, like I said as well, like when Jesus was crucified, for example, it was 3 people crucified at once. Like it's mass death is not
uncommon.
That it's just, you wouldn't, like 7 just seems like a lot.
It just seems, and like the people that go and witness the hangings and stuff, I can't imagine seeing one person being hanged, and I definitely can't imagine seeing 7 people being hanged at once. You know what I mean? Like, that's just traumatizing. I don't know. So they were positioned one in front of the other on painted footprints over. Did I say this? No. Over the divide of the track, and held by the warders while the hangman placed the nooses around their necks. He then turned down the hood flaps when everything was ready and pulled the lever, plummeting them through the huge trapdoors. They were left to hang for 15 minutes before being stripped and examined by a doctor in the room below. Yeah. So once death had been certified, the bodies were washed off with a hose, and the water was allowed to drain into a large gully in the floor. A warder put a rope around each of their bodies, and with a pulley lifted them to allow the rope to be taken off. They were then lowered onto a stretcher and placed directly into their coffins before being taken to a public cemetery for burial. Executions in South Africa were held in private, but the procedure was described in detail by the hangman Chris Barnard, which is not the same person who did the heart transplant, in an interview before he died. and he officiated over 1,500 hangings.
So many.
I don't know if that's just the hanging, like he was present at 1,500 hangings, but there were multiple people being hanged at the same time, or if he witnessed 1,500 people die. I don't know. Both are terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, 1,500 is still better than like 7,000 or 8,000. It's
true,
just, it's a lot. Like,
it is a lot. I don't know if I'd ever be able to sleep, because if my rooster, not even my rooster, but the rooster, I don't know, because the amount of times like I play memories replay in my mind, I don't know how one would be able to deal with that amount of like just trauma, really.
That's a lot.
So group hangings were very common. Like I said, the gallows were able to hang up to 7 people at a time. Out of nearly 3,000 hangings between 1959 and 1989, only 14 of them were women. And of the 14, most were executed for crimes not politically motivated. Many were executed for the murder of their husbands, including Daisy de Malker. And in the apartheid years, they saw a steady increase in the number of people executed in South Africa. And in the 1980s particularly, more people were executed per year than anywhere else in the world.
That's insane.
That is insane and horrible.
Especially considering how many like serial killers there were in America at that time. Like, how did we have like the most?
I have no idea. Then that makes me think that the politically motivated number of executions really ramped up.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that was like race-based and stuff.
Exactly. De Klerk ordered a moratorium on executions in 1990, and capital punishment was abolished altogether by President Nelson Mandela on the 7th of June 1995. And that was the story of Emily Chenier and Sandra Smith.
So, wait, state executions in South Africa was finished when? 95?
Yes, officially, but de Klerk ordered a moratorium on it, so like a pause on it from 1990.
But that's insane, because like that means like when I was 5 years old, it was still kind of state executions was still a thing.
Happen.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's like my lifetime, you know?
That is, yeah, if you put it like that. It was a year before I was born.
Oh, God, you're so young.
no, but I mean...
Yeah.
When you put it in perspective like that, it's not that long ago.
It's really not.
Still, like, executing people, you know? And I know it's a very difficult topic to discuss, because I think there's a lot of nuance that goes into it, but crazy to think that still happened not that long ago.
Yeah, it's like...
I mean, when did you say the guillotine was used last again?
1977 in France.
Exactly. That's not that long ago.
That was really not long ago.
No.
Yeah, it was, and like, they still, like, that was the last time they took video and pictures and stuff. Obviously, like, not, like, from far, but, like, it's lost documented.
No. Oh.
But I mean, to think, like, the spectacle it used to be, so...
Well, now there's a freaking... literal war breaking out in 2022. You know?
It wasn't
get a better way of dealing with it. Yeah, just
go for the penis enlargement surgery if your life is that bad. Don't make it the whole world's problem.
Don't make your fragile masculinity everyone else's problem.
Yeah. So many innocent people being displaced, being hurt, and for what?
Being killed. Well, there's 100. Well, right now there's at least 137 people that have, and hundreds of others that have been injured, and 137 people have died in the Ukraine.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
It really is. For what?
Yeah.
There's no legitimate reason. Anyway, I really need to go to the bathroom quickly.
Okay. And wine break.
I'll be back.
BRB. Did you like change your top or something? Oh, maybe I just wasn't paying it. Oh, I think I didn't see your top. I think your camera was like high.
Yeah, the camera was high. It says, in memory of when I cared.
Nice. It's very apt.
Did you see that like a Hollywood reporter reported that the Queen is dead?
What? No, when?
Yeah, like now in these last couple of days, like the past day or two.
What is happening to this week?
A Hollywood reporter that the Queen, like according to his very close sources, the Queen has died, and everyone is like up in arms because first of all, if this is how people find out that the fucking Queen has died from a tabloid Hollywood reporter and not from like the BBC or the official royals
the royal family
statement. Can you imagine history books?
Yeah.
And if this is also if this is false, what the hell? You know, and can you not get sued?
Yeah, and I mean, I know that the monarchy doesn't have like as much sway and power as it did because you know there's the whole House of Lords and representatives and all that, and a prime minister and everything. But like, what does that mean for this Russian invasion as well? You know, because Britain like was one of the main forces in the whole like Hitler thing. You know.
I don't know.
It's kind of like saying, well, the American president is dead, you know, in like a sense.
Exactly. Exactly.
And this is like the worst time for that sort of thing to happen, so.
But I did see reports that she has cancelled a few like virtual meetings or virtual appearances, I should say. And then I also saw, but I didn't go into these links, so don't quote me on anything that I'm saying, but that she got COVID, which is not a vote of confidence.
She's a queen, yes, but she's still an old lady.
Human, yeah.
She's human, and if she needs some time off...
Exactly, she's very old.
I think after being queen for like 60 years, whatever, you deserve a day off if you want a day off.
Yes, no, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't really follow anything about the royal family. I just saw that randomly pop up on my feed. And it's like, what the hell? This is so random. But yeah, it would be interesting to see what would happen if she would die. Because, I mean, that's the end of an era, you know? And I'm wondering if
Charles
William,
finally...
Charles,
he's the next in line.
Yeah, he is.
He's been waiting for that his whole life, I think.
I know.
And then...
I don't know how that will play out.
Yeah.
The people don't really like him, do they?
They don't.
I don't know.
I think after the Diana thing, people don't trust him.
Yeah. Or his counterpart.
Yeah, I think William would be the people's choice if the people had a choice in electing a king. Though I suppose most people nowadays are like anti-monarchy. I'm not. I think it's if you're a good monarch, it doesn't matter. And it's not like they have absolute power anymore. You know, like we've got government at the same time, so keep the tradition alive, I say.
I just have a problem with the really, really rich people who like don't do enough for humanity as a whole. I'm not saying it's anyone's responsibility, but if you have excess, why would you not share?
Yeah. I also think if we were in that position, like not to defend like billionaires who are like oppressing their staff and whatever, but like if you're in that position, it's a whole different like life. It's a whole different ball game, you know, as well. So I think, especially if you're born into a family like the royal family, like it's such a different way of life. We can't even begin to imagine. I mean, I would love to be a princess. I'm not gonna lie.
I wouldn't. Not gonna lie. I don't think I'd like it.
Like Princess Diaries, and I was like, I need this for my life.
I'd probably, I don't know, be the black sheep like Harry, or the ginger sheep.
My goodness. Well, on the royal family's Twitter, they posted like an hour ago and a couple of seconds ago and nothing about the Queen, so I'm sure it's just a hoax.
Could you imagine if it's not? Could you imagine if they're like, oh, how do we deal with this?
Yeah.
We need to think of strategies. Just pretend like this happening.
Yeah, like if she did die, it would be politically the best choice to keep it quiet until this whole thing blows over. Just in case it holds any sort of real sway.
Yeah.
But then again, we don't know anything about politics, so don't listen to anything we're saying.
Oh no, this is not a politics podcast. Or political podcast.
No. We don't even know what a thorax is. Like, we don't know anything. Apparently a thorax is a shape. And that shape is a dismembered torso. Oh yeah, I suppose I have to tell the story, hey. I was trying to... Oh, actually I did this research like an hour before we started recording.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I started in the morning. I started like 8:30 in the morning. I was like, I'm going to do my research today. And around 4 o'clock, I'm like, I haven't done like anything. I had such like writer's block almost, you know, like you research a bunch of things or you're looking up stuff and it's like, I can't use this. I don't know what to say about this. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, so I chose the Amityville haunting because, you know, that's a well-known story. There's a lot of information that was just like readily available. I didn't have to go like deep diving. So it's a bit of a sellout, but it's also a story I wanted to do. You know, it's
You're going to have to cover it eventually, so why not now?
Yeah, and this is like one of the most famous ghost stories.
Exactly.
So yeah, Amityville is a town in Long Island, around 48 kilometers outside of New York. In the now infamous house on 112 Ocean Avenue, it has since been changed to 108 to deter tourists, but I mean, like, it's so recognizable, so there's no point in changing the number.
Same exact spot.
Yeah, that's like keeping your face exactly the same and changing your name. Like, people still know what you look like. Okay, so on the 13th of November, 1974, Ronald J. DeFeo Jr. slayed his entire family by shooting them in their beds with a .35 caliber rifle. The victims were his father, Ronald DeFeo Sr., Louise, his mother, his sisters Allison and Dawn, and brothers John and Mark.
And he did this just in the middle of the night, eh?
Yeah, everyone was asleep in their beds, and he went and just shot everybody. And this is somewhere I could have researched it more, I guess, but like, if you hear gunshots when you wake up, did he maybe slip them something to make them sleep? Yeah. Or did he just maybe place them into their bed if they ran away? Because I feel like the kids would have been all over the place.
Yeah. How big is the house? Is it
It's a 3-story. So it's a big house. So.
But still, it must echo somewhat. It's still
maybe?
Unless he put a pillow.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, he might have done that. Like, try and silence it. But yeah, he was serving a 25 to life sentence at Sullivan Correctional Facility. He was taken to the hospital on February 2nd of 2021. He died in hospital in Albany, New York on Friday the 12th of March, 2021, and he was 69 years old. Yeah. So it's just also weird, like, till last year this dude was around, you know. It always, it always feels so removed and so long ago, but like, he was born in the 70s. Well, this happened in the 70s, and he died like last year. That's
crazy.
Yeah. So that was like the tragedy that happened in the house. But where the story becomes paranormal is when the Lutz family moved in December 1975, which was a year after the murders. The, quote, voices in my head statement from DeFeo is what sparked interest in the Lutz family's problem, since it alluded to a, quote, force attached to the house. So George and Kathy Lutz acquired the 4,000 square foot house for only $80,000, which in 2022... Oh, this is what confused me last time.
I remember
this. The $80,000 would be $395,000 in 2022, which is about 5.9 million rand. So it's not cheap, but
no,
it's still for the size, it's reasonable.
Yes.
And this was obviously discounted due to the crime, because it was only a year later. But the Lutz's family was short and unpleasant, and it also sparked a lot of controversy.
The Lutz's family's stay?
Yeah, the Lutz family is the ones that got it for $80,000 that moved in. The DeFeos were the ones that were murdered.
Yeah. You just said the Lutz family's short... What?
Yeah, their short stay in the house.
Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So, a 3-story, 5-bedroom house with a boathouse for a reduced price is a great deal for a couple with 3 kids. So they happily moved in. But the day they moved in, they had a priest bless the house, and allegedly the priest felt a hand slap him in the sewing room, and he heard a voice telling him to get out.
That is when I listen, and I leave.
Yeah. No. It's like that meme that it's like a family running into the house, and it's like, this house is subject to this many murders, and we hear voices and crap, and the white family's like, yes, we're moving in right now.
Not me. I can guarantee you that I would be out of there before the ghost could finish its sentence.
Yeah, no. Like, I wouldn't want to live in a house that has something actively happening. I'll go to a place and investigate it, sure, but I don't want it in my house.
I know, I don't even want to go and investigate something, but what?
No, I don't even want to say it because I don't even want to, like, make it real, but sometimes, like, the last few nights, I can't sleep properly, and like I will wake up and look, and I don't know if it's, you know, my eyes adjusting or whatever, but I'll see like dark figures, but I think it's just my eyes. I hope it's just my eyes adjusting. And
I hope so too.
Last night I was hearing, like, it was quiet because when I got up out of bed and I walked around, I didn't hear anything, but when I was lying in bed I heard like music and talking and stuff. So maybe I'm losing my mind. Maybe it's haunted. Maybe I'm misinterpreting sounds. I think I should. I haven't saged in a while, so maybe I should.
Maybe this weekend is the weekend to do that.
Yeah. Oh, no. So, after the incident with the priest, they reported occurrences such as doors being ripped from hinges, slime oozing from ceilings, and cabinets slamming shut. They claimed that there were odors and sounds. The house wouldn't be warm, like it was just cold no matter what they did. George, the father, said that he would wake up at around 3:15 almost daily. This was the estimated time that the murders occurred. So, yeah, with like the ooze, I'm like, okay, now there's like actual ooze coming out, but ooze is a very vague term. It can be mold, literally anything.
Yeah.
It could also be like they're trying to describe maybe blood, you know, from the murders, that whole... perhaps maybe like in a... Not like in a physical sense. Maybe it's like spiritual remnants. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who knows? But what really made me question their experiences is that he said his wife physically transformed into an old woman and she levitated once. So it's like...
I don't know.
Claims of levitation.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that.
So one night, George, the father, heard the kids' beds, quote, slamming up and down on the floor, but he couldn't do anything since he was paralyzed, which leads me to think it's sleep paralysis, maybe? Mm-hmm. So the Lutz family left the house after 28 days since they moved in. They left in such a hurry that clothes, possessions, and food remained.
I don't blame them, if that's accurate.
After 2 months, the house was covered in a local TV segment where paranormal experts were brought in to investigate. And I'm only including this because I read this woman's surname as Dildo and not Didio. But her quote was, "It was like a psychic slumber party." She said that to ABC. So when all these people were investigating, the paranormal people, that's when the well-known photo from inside the house was taken. The one that shows a ghostly boy peering out of a door. The psychics, so that's claimed to be one of the young boys, you know, the DeFeo boys. The psychics that were determined... I struggled on the sentence last time too.
I remember this.
The psychics that were there determined that there was a demonic force in the house. At some point, the Warrens also came to investigate or offer assistance to figure out what was going on with the house. But I'll cover the Warrens more in depth and go into cases more on them because they're a whole other subject. Mm-hmm. So at some point, the Lutz family worked with the author Jay Anson, where a best-selling book was written telling the story. The family said they didn't sign a contract and that the book and movie only earned them around $300,000, which was like them kind of saying that it wasn't a cash grab attempt, but that's still a lot of money.
And still made more than what they paid the house, what they paid for the house, you know.
Yeah.
What they bought the house for. There we go.
Yeah. So the defense attorney who worked with DeFeo admitted that he and the Lutz parents came up with a story over a few bottles of wine. So this defense attorney literally said that it was a hoax. But the father, George, kept insisting that it was all real. And I mean, DeFeo he said he didn't want to claim the insanity defense that he, was told to go with. So like the lawyer was saying, plead insanity, say it's the voices in your head and all that. That causes you now to shoot your family. And then the same lawyer is now saying that he orchestrated this whole thing with the Lutz family. So, yeah.
Yeah, what's
like you don't know the truth. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Daniel Lutz, 10 years old at the time, said that his father invited, quote, mysterious and dangerous forces into their lives due to his interest in the occult. So George Lutz was known to dabble in the occult, and maybe he tried to conjure something to try and make paranormal activity happen so that they could profit off of it. Don't know.
Why
because
would you even do that?
Yeah, since that time the property has changed hands a few times and no one has reported any strange occurrences. So it just like adds a level of doubt to
whether or not this was actually happening, or was this just an attempt to get rich.
Yeah.
Sell the story.
Yeah, because people murder people and it's not a supernatural force, it's just because there's something wrong with them or they snap or whatever. So to then create a whole paranormal spin on it is just, kind of cheap.
A little gross,
Yeah, it's disrespectful to the 6 victims, like 4 children, like a whole family was just taken out. Just all at once. It's and you don't know
sensationalizing it.
Yes, and you don't know if, like I said, the kids woke up and they went to the sound. Maybe they heard their parents screaming. Maybe the one was shot before the other, and they went.
Exactly. You
don't know what the kids, like you said earlier in your story, like that trauma that the victim goes through before, they die. You don't know what. Yeah, so it's all just very, like you say, gross if it's all made up. Because you're really playing off of an actual tragedy.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the house still
lives.
Yeah. So the house still stands. It's very iconic. There was a movie made with Ryan Reynolds. Of course the movie is just gonna, tell the story in a slightly different way, but it's based on true crime.
Yeah.
It's very sad. Like
it's so sad.
Yeah, and if that family is still in that house, that's also very sad. Like if that ghost boy picture, if he is still there, or if he was still there at the time that was taken, like that's sad. Because it's also when they say when a life is taken so suddenly, it kind of sometimes can get stuck in that moment, kind of thing, and that's like you have to like somehow be helped onto the other side.
Into the light,
yeah. So like that's why there's some accounts of ghosts where they're like, am I dead? And it's like, like they don't know,
like stuck in a loop
they don't know what's happened to them. They don't understand, and they're like just stuck, which is, if you think about that, that's awful, because that's years and years and years of just being stuck somewhere.
Exactly.
What are you looking at? That's so creepy.
Sorry, there's like a big bird flying outside the house. But it's like a bird
your
of prey or something.
Your equivalent of a scary ghost.
Just as terrifying, if you ask me.
Ghost birds.
No, thank you. Goodbye. Good night.
Now that's something you can dream about.
No.
So yeah, that's the Amityville horror.
And you mentioned that Robert DeFeo, he said that he heard voices, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't want to go with that defense either.
Yeah, he didn't want to go with that defense. That's what he said. Yeah. But his lawyer pushed him to do it. I mean, of course, the lawyer's job is to try and get you off and to make it...
The minimum amount of time, yeah.
So it's kind of him doing his job, but it's still... Like, he didn't want to go with that.
Mm.
Yeah.
And, like, did he say anything, like, later in life while he was in prison or anything?
Not that I could see. Maybe he did, but I don't think he did. Oh, he was pronounced dead at 6:35 p.m. He was 23 years old when he shot his parents and his siblings. That's so young. Like, doesn't your brain stop developing at like 25 or something?
Yeah, I think it's 25. What would possess you to do that? You know, to kill your entire family? What?
He left behind 3 ex-wives. Oh. And according to one of his ex-wives, he was also the father to at least 1 child.
So
he went on to
married in prison?
I guess. And... Yeah. Those women who, and I suppose men, some men as well, who go and marry people in prison. Like, if you're an innocent person in prison, fine. But if you're going like, oh, this is a serial killer or a mass murderer, I'm just like a fan. Like, that's gross.
Like what woman did to Ted Bundy and Charles Manson.
Yeah. Like getting the bite mark tattooed and stuff. It's like gross.
That's disgusting. If you have a fucking tattoo of a serial killer, don't listen to the podcast. Go away.
No. And of course, Charlie Manson wasn't really a serial killer, but I'm sure you'll cover that.
Of course. But
it says here, DeFeo's insanity plea wasn't accepted. And in 1965, he was found guilty on 6 counts of murder and sentenced to 6 separate 25 years to life sentences.
What?
And, so he said that he heard voices telling him his family was plotting against him and that he had to murder his parents and 4 siblings out of self-defense.
Okay.
Actually, let me just... here it is. The... names of the victims: Ronald DeFeo Sr., Louise, the mother, the sisters, Alison and Dawn, and the brothers, John and Mark. They all were just murdered by a family member, and it's just... Yeah. Because people always like, oh, you know, like with sensational crimes and stuff, it's always like, oh, the murderer and stuff, and it's like, the victims matter. You know, like these people... their lives are just cut short by someone they trusted and loved. And that's so tragic.
It's so sad. Oh my
God.
I can't even...
Well, at least he's dead now.
Yeah, at least...
This has been a bummer episode.
It has. Literally from the start. Not that any of our episodes ever have a happy ending, but...
No. But like, when we recorded it the first time, it was at least a bit more upbeat, but now with the whole... Russia-Ukraine thing, it's just, I think, soured, like, everything.
Definitely. It's much more somber now.
Yeah. I'm gonna go do my diamond dot painting now.
I think I'm gonna embroider now.
Oh, nice.
If you have anything to tell us, you can get into contact via info@lawandomen.com. That's our email address.
Yeah, and we've got social media, which is... Our handles are Law and Omen. And it's AND, not the ampersand. I don't even know if you can have an ampersand in your usernames. I should know this. I don't know.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Like the podcast, share with your friends, please.
Thanks for listening. And
yes, tune in next week.
Yep.
Be safe. Take care of your mental health.
Tell your loved ones you love them. And tell your enemies that they can go to hell. Life is short, man.
Yeah.
And pet a stray dog. And be nice to animals.
And to yourself.
Yes. But mostly animals.
Okay. See you again talk to you again next week. Okay, bye. Love you.
Bye.